Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. It's pretty much a given that no matter how much we plan our lives, whether it's for the year, the month, or even just a week, there's one thing we can pretty much count on. Setbacks are going to happen. It's not the most uplifting thought, I know, but it's real. Life has its way of throwing curveballs, and oftentimes when we least expect them. But here's the cool part, it's not about avoiding these setbacks. Because let's be honest, we can't. It's all about how we bounce back from them. And that's exactly why we have Darlene Santor, also known as Coach Dar, with us today. She is not just a coach. Coach Dar is a licensed, board certified occupational therapist, a powerhouse on the global speaking circuit, and a go to mental skills coach for elite athletes across the NBA, NHL, MLB, MLS, and NFL. She's the real deal when it comes to teaching resilience and mastering the art of bouncing back. Today, Coach Dar is here to share some gold from her book, The Art of Bouncing Back. She's going to walk us through how to turn those inevitable setbacks into setups for something greater. With her expertise, we're not just talking about getting back on our feet. We're talking about jumping back higher and stronger. So let's dive in and soak up some wisdom from Coach Dar. Whether life throws you a curveball or a full-on strikeout, after today, you'll be ready to swing back harder. Let's get this comeback party started. Coach Dar, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, could you open up my talks with that?
It's always so fun. It's so fun to do that. I love it.
It was so good. I was like, that's a giftedness you have there. I love it.
It's actually my favorite piece. I've had people are like, you should probably record your intro before the guests come so it doesn't take up time. And I'm like, no, that's the best part. I love doing the intro when they're there.
Yes, and I love it because also it gets the person that's ready to talk psyched. I'm like,
yeah, right?
Now.
Yeah, here we go. Well, I just so appreciate having you here today. I have been like, I couldn't wait to meet you. I couldn't wait to have you on the podcast. Like, your book is so perfect for like what we talk about here on Life Without Secrets. Life is struggle. There's struggles in life. That's just reality. Life is not always rainbows, butterflies, and positive vibes only. So, how do we get there? So, I really want to hear about your journey. I want others to hear your story about like becoming a trusted mental skills coach. Obviously, for top athletes, for big executives and companies,
Right.
like that's inspiring and also impressive. You also have this background in occupational therapy, like which when I think about it and when I was reading your story, I'm like, oh my gosh, that so goes hand in hand. And I didn't
Exactly.
connect the dots like right away. And then I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. So could you share with us some of the
Yeah.
defining moments in your life that not only shaped your path of like getting here, but what inspired you to write The Art of Bouncing Back?
Such a good question and a lot in that. So let's
Right?
see.
There was.
Yeah. But what I love is so to anyone listening right now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got to where I am today. But I will say that everything has a common thread. It connects my giftedness throughout the whole way. Now, did I know that as I was going forward? No, that's why they're like when you look back, you see how all the dots got connected, but when you're going,
Mhm.
you're not really sure, but you're stepping up in your giftedness. And what I mean by that, so I grew up in Connecticut and come from an Italian family, which we watched sports the whole time. I always tell in the story, my sister was born, then 4 years later, my dad was going to have his boy, which was going to be come out in January on his birthday, and I came out on Christmas and was a girl. he's like, what the hell? Like, he literally had the name picked out, Daniel. So Darlene was not where this was supposed to go.
Oh,
But it's
that's
such a
funny.
metaphor for what we want and what we get and what God wants us to have is so much better than what we could craft out where we want to go, but then you have to leave openness for flow to let it
Yeah.
take you where you're supposed to. So grew up in my family, we're in Connecticut, and my mom was a barber, my dad was a tool and die maker. They didn't have a lot. But something in me since I was a little kid was the person that always wanted to fight for the underdog. I was always the person that wanted to help affect change. And I don't know if it's because my mother was like Mother Teresa, and I believe my mom could have gone on and done like all these amazing things, although she made a huge impact because when she passed, it was standing room only of congressmen and governors and people, and this was a barber. But going back to it, I just saw her work so hard, and I wanted to make for a better way in my life, honestly, so I could have them have a better life.
Mm.
And there was just something in me because I don't like when people hurt. Not that I could take the hurt away, but it hurts me when people hurt, or it hurts me when other people hurt other people. So I've had this in me, which again, I'm sharing the giftedness. It was already in me. Come 16, I tell my father, I want to go to school. And he's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. And right at that time, my grandfather has a stroke. And when I go
Mm.
in to see him, there's an occupational therapist that is working on his cognition and his vision. And something about it just kind of sparked inside me. And I said, that's it. Go to school to become an OT. And again, the threads of this now, as I look back, is insane because
Insane.
seeing my grandpa have a stroke is the catalyst for me to go be an OT because that's who took care of him. I go to OT school, come out, I'm an occupational therapist in an amazing hospital in Connecticut. But I could have worked in any sector, much like doctors. You could work in
Mm-hmm.
pediatrics, you could work in orthopedics. I chose neuroscience. So I worked in trauma and neuroscience with TBIs, traumatic brain injury, stroke, spinal cord injuries. And my whole thing is neuro. And I ended up teaching in neuro and specializing it there. And then at 25, I married my college sweetheart. I'm taking care of my stroke patients. I'm teaching now at the hospital. Everything is growing. And to me, honestly, I thought like this is the American dream for me because I came from humble beginnings.
Mm-hmm.
And I am so grateful at this moment. And then I hurt my back. I go to a chiropractor. I come out of the chiropractic session and the sciatic pain is gone, but I don't realize at that moment what had happened. And what I mean by that is I go to work after that and all of a sudden the floor flips upside down. So the floor is the ceiling and the ceiling's the floor and I don't know what's going on. And I don't recommend this, but I thought at 25, I'm like, I must have a sinus infection because it wasn't like I had paralysis at the moment. It wasn't like I was staggering. I just visually, perceptually got thrown off. By the
Mm.
time I made my way through feeling to the bottom of the stairs, it cleared up. So I said, oh, this has definitely got to be a sinus infection. But long story short of this, two things I want to teach. If there's something like that going on, you have to go seek help. Don't do what I
Mm-hmm.
did at 25. I went home and the symptoms ended up getting worse over time. And what had happened is when I went to the chiropractor, they manipulated my neck and they ripped the artery to my brain. So I was bleeding in the brain and I didn't know I was bleeding in the brain, which led to a blood clot. So I had had a
Mm.
stroke. And so there is such irony. It was the stroke
Yes.
of my grandfather that got me into it. Go to become an OT and work on a stroke floor, which is not what I originally thought I'd do, but it was what I was so passionate about because the brain, neuro, human behavior, all of that is what I love. And then I ended up having a stroke. And
Wow.
I just think I can't believe it. However, when that happened, they didn't operate it, but they said, Dar, if this blood clot dislodges any day, you could die. And I just bought the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, because I wanted to start a
Mm.
family, which I wasn't able to do. But it did create a catalyst in me where I thought, I'm 25 and I just got told I could die any day. Well, I want to go make the world better. I mean, I already had that in me, but now I really did. And Jillian, it was kind of the thing where you have a moment where you realized, what are we really scared about in life? So I'm told I could die any day. So I lose fear. I'm like, what am I afraid of taking a risk? What am I afraid of what people will think? I could die and then I'm going to regret that I worried about what someone's opinion was and I never took that chance or I never
Mm.
tried to make things better. So that was such a catalyst of a drive at work for me. And then what it did is I went back to school for business and I learned leadership and I learned healthcare. And then I was running healthcare facilities and I ran multiple businesses, which then in 2008, when the recession hit, I took the leap of faith and I started my own practice because I knew science, psychology, neuro. I knew leadership by that point because I'd run companies. And I just thought, I have to go help people. Again, it was more of a, people are hurting. People are losing their jobs. They're losing their finances. They're losing their mental well-being because they're losing so much. They think they'll never come back. And I thought, I helped people overcome the most extreme odds come back.
Yeah.
I can help you
Yeah.
in life come back, and I have the tools. Again, I'm not just, it's not like I woke up someday and I'm just going to go help people because I just feel like it without having the education or tools. I had it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd already
Mm-hmm.
been running businesses. So I took all that I knew and I started speaking for free on mindset in 2008. You would have thought it was
Wow.
Elon Musk telling people there's going to be self-driving cars. They're like, what is she talking about? But here's the teachable lesson in this. It's led me to where I am today, which my company has continued to thrive, speaking around the world, coaching obviously professional athletes and CEOs, mostly peak performers. The reason I got here is because I was consistent and using my gifts and my talents to meet the world's needs. I knew with all my heart, because I know human behavior and I know neuroscience, that if I just consistently poured this information out and I could help one person, which could help another person, it would spread. Does that mean it was easy? Hell no, it's still not easy because I've had 3 strokes, by the way. It's not like they stopped.
Oh.
But I'm still doing what I love, and I'd rather do that and say I'm so glad I did than I wished I had.
It's such an incredible story, and, like, I think it's such a testament to, like, we'll plan our whole lives and, like, we expect it to go a certain way,
I
right? Like,
know.
just like you're like, "I bought this, what to expect when you're expecting." Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
you had this story in your head of like, "Okay, I'm gonna do this by this age, and then this is gonna happen."
Mm-hmm.
And then God laughs at us a little bit, and he's like,
I
"How
know.
about I have more for you in life, and here is what we're gonna do, and I just prepped you for it," you know? And
Yes.
it's incredible, and we have to sometimes, like, surrender to that. I'm also curious, like, I wanna meet you at that moment, like, when you had that first stroke, like, and you were, like, experiencing that, and that is, like, a deep, moment of, like, realization. Was there someone or something that, like, showed up for you in those moments that, like, brought you to in the hospital and feeling like, "Gosh, like, what's gonna happen? I can't live out what I thought my life was gonna look like."
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, how did you get
Yeah.
from, like, being in that moment to having, the power inside of you? Was there someone
Mm-hmm.
or something that, like, brought you to that next level? Because I mean, you
Mm.
didn't just, like, get back up and then go to your job and continue living your life and kinda be sad by something that didn't happen. You got back up, and then you, like, got more education, and you went after something bigger, and you said, you weren't scared anymore, but was there something else in
Mm.
there, deep down? Was there someone by your side or something?
Great
Um,
question.
yeah.
Here's what I'll say. I didn't necessarily do the right thing in that I numb the pain through work. So
Yeah.
I'll say I always am so I teach authentically and vulnerably.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
want people's front stage to meet their backstage. And I say this because at that age I was almost in shock because I said, no, I'm the person that helps people. I don't
Mhm.
get this diagnosis. I
Yeah.
help them. And then as an Italian, not providing for my husband at the time, I was like, wait, we can't have our family. I can't.
Mhm.
Everything I just kept hearing, no, no, no. And I thought, I actually go, no, that's not how this was going to go. And I will tell
Mhm.
you, I pushed my way through all of this. I numbed it through work. I didn't take the time that I should have to process all of it. And
Mhm.
I just kept going forward. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until when so that happened, I don't know the year, but let's just say it was years later from when I had the stroke. I'm trying to think, probably about like 7 or 8 years after to then when I started my own practice. And it was when I started my own practice that I had time, even though you're starting your practice, there's lots going on, but you're in that time where you have more time because you're
Mhm.
starting something, you're figuring out. That's when I felt depression. And everything that pushed me to go back to school is because I just wanted to make it better. I'm like, I'm going to do it. And I'm grateful
Yeah.
for that. I really am
Yeah.
because I learned so much during that time from a
Mhm.
business standpoint. And I was able to, do so much. But I didn't deal with the pain of it until later on when I thought I dealt with the guilt of not being able to provide a family. I dealt with the guilt of kind of pushing my way through it. And so I dealt with it all then later, which then that also became a catalyst for me because by dealing with it and feeling it, guess what it did? It taught me more, which
Mhm.
then years later set me up for when I wrote this book. The first chapter is called Embrace the Suck. You have to embrace it to deal with it. And until you embrace it, it's not going away because guess what? I
Yeah.
had 3 strokes, and the third stroke, The last one that was just 4 years ago, oh my gosh, that was the worst one. But I was so much more prepared. And that's why I wrote the book, because I did all the things that I needed to do. I learned all the things. I taught all the things. So by the time I came to write this book, I was literally using all the tools on myself and my clients. So I knew what to do. So my low, imagine it's the worst stroke ever, but I didn't go the lowest ever because I had the
Mhm.
tools. So I didn't hit rock bottom. I was
Yeah.
able to come back out. And my mission statement, my why, was so locked in by then. I didn't like it. I was sad about it. I was frustrated. I couldn't speak. I couldn't talk. I couldn't walk the way I wanted to. I was home alone doing it in Arizona here. My
Mm.
family lived in Connecticut, and it was so hard. But I got back up that third stroke. Years later, we're talking, because I kept going, you know what, Dar? Couple things. Your why is to awaken greatness. You were called here to awaken greatness in yourself and others. You have to get up. And then it was
Yeah.
number two. The reason you have to do this is because you didn't come here to earth for yourself. You legitimately didn't come here so you could coast through life. You came here because you have a gift, just like everyone has a gift. And I look at it as I'm supposed to serve as my way of saying thank you for life. And I look at the military that go and give up their life so we could have freedom. Well, guess what? I
Mm.
believe we are all soldiers at battle here called life, and we are supposed to use our gift in the battlefield of life so we could help each other through this war, through the challenges, through all of it. And I'm telling you, that's what got me up. I was giving my own pep talks when I was going through it, and it's still what drives me today.
I feel like this is a pep talk.
Yeah,
Yes. Like I feel it. It's like a battle zone, right? And like I
yes,
mean, I feel like that when every time I walk into the emergency room. That is
yes,
a battlefield. Like you are seeing the worst of people at their most struggling
absolutely.
time, and I can relate to everything that you're saying too, because I did the same thing in my own life. Like I became a teen mom. I had teachers that were like, "Oh darn, you had so much potential." And I was like, "What?" And so what did I do? I was like, well, I'm going to show you, and I became valedictorian, and I was like pushing through, and that served a purpose in my life at
Yeah,
that time, but I never sat in it and embraced the suck, as you say in your principle number 1. So I want to dive into that a little bit for our listeners. Like, why is embracing the suck principle number 1 in your book, and what does that mean? How do we embrace the suck?
right. So there's 9 principles in the book, and not that we'll go through all 9 principles, but I think it's important to understand you have to, in order to start the bounce back. This book, the reason I wrote it was, one, to teach you how to bounce back, but also I'm helping people build mental resiliency. You're not
Mhm.
taught the tools on how to build mental resiliency, and we are thankfully in a world where now people talk about this. But I've been in this profession 27 years. We're
Mhm.
just now talking about how you have to do your reps now to get mentally strong. Reading
Yeah.
this book and writing out these principles and going through this are like doing your reps in the gym. So you are ready when adversity hits. You will have the
Mm.
tools, you will know what to do. And the first principle is embrace the suck. So you get a diagnosis, with your health. You have something happen within your family, maybe marriage, maybe life, whatever it may be. Things are
Mhm.
happening. It could just even be just you've had a bad couple months at work. It's not even catastrophic, but it's just
Yeah.
hard and you're just getting gnawed at. You have to stop and embrace it. And you have to say, okay, I heard this expression, which is not in the book, but it's just recent. So what? Now what? Meaning,
So what?
once you start and you accept it, meaning you've accepted, you're acknowledging it. I'm with you, sitting there going, I'm sorry this happened. I'm hugging you. We got this. Once we get through the emotion of embracing this just happened, we have to go, now what? What are we
Mm.
going to do about it? Because it becomes choice. Choice is important. When you get hit by something, you have to decide, after you've accepted it, are you going to sit in this forever, this pain, or are you going to do something about it? Because if you let adversity advance you, game changer. But if you would
Mhm.
let adversity attack you, it holds you back for a long
Yeah.
time, for as long as you allow it. And I know this is hard. Believe me, I've gone through the 3 strokes, loss of my parents, divorce, all these things. You
Mhm.
either allow it to hold you back or you allow it to advance you. You make a choice every day in what you do with it.
Oh my goodness. It's so true. And
Mm-hmm.
I do see that a lot too, is like people get kind of stuck in their struggle. And I almost feel like they define themselves by
Mm-hmm.
their setbacks, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do we, and this is another principle in your book, but like, how do we go from that to asking the right questions of and answering the big question of who am I and why am I going
Yeah.
through this?
Yeah. So when you get hit with it, the next step to move forward is, when we have a setback, we start to doubt ourselves. We start to
Hmm.
literally lose confidence. We start to internalizing this. Now, is there's things that maybe went wrong that you have to have ownership on? Totally. Acknowledge that. Write it out. Make notes of it. Learn from it. Figure out how to
Hmm.
make adjustments from it. All that. But I'm trying to get your foundation set right again. So I go and take you through, how do you start to remind yourself what you could lean on strong, which is your gifts and your talents. So say you lose your job, say you have the relationship ends, say something happens. They didn't take your gifts and talents away. Even when I went through the strokes, now I couldn't speak at the time, but once I got my speech back, I still had my brain faculties, I still had my knowledge, I still had all my experience to still teach and get back up. Life experiences don't take away what you've been building all these years, which is your gifts and your talents. It doesn't take that away. It's like literally gold inside you that you get to keep pulling deposits from. So I get you to go back and say, hold up, let's go back to what makes you great. What's your scouting card? Who are you? And then once I
Mm.
reset your mind correctly on the foundation, which is true, which is you, now we could build from there. Now we have a steady foundation again, because I've reinserted confidence in you. You believe in you again, and then you can go forward.
Yeah, it's so important. And I feel like because the world is so busy that we live in today, sometimes it's hard to actually like sit in those moments to
Yeah.
actually like pause and figure out like, okay, yeah, like what does make me feel good? Like what
Mm-hmm.
am I good at, right? I
Yeah.
feel like the world wants to like tell us what to do or who to be, and instead like we have to be reminded, and that's why coaching is so important, I feel like too,
Yeah.
because like and especially in today too, I feel like more and more people are like in their social media and they're like, oh, all I need to do is be that person and do what that person's doing. But it's like the truth is like we have to rediscover who we are and then use those gifts, not somebody else's.
Oh, and I love this because I want people to be aware that some people are sharing to the best of their ability, but Instagram does not mean intellect. Okay?
Yeah.
Just because someone said it on the gram does not mean that they have knowledge in this or skilled or have a degree in it. And one size does not fit all. So be careful who you're taking advice from. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. What qualifications do these people have other than they heard it and regurgitate it? That does not mean
Mhm.
it's true. So that doesn't mean you follow it. Fact check, do your work, understand who you're following and getting things from. And there's some really great people on there giving good information, but they have the background to back it up. So let's
Mhm.
make sure we're checking before we're
Mhm.
checking ourselves with it.
Right. I love it's such a good point nowadays, especially. So, and
Yeah.
on that point, like I really enjoyed your principle on the bounce back environment and
Mm.
creating our bounce back environment. I have to say, though, like as I was reading it, I felt really convicted as I'm like looking at my desk and I'm like, oh, well, it's not exactly the right environment here, but
Yeah.
can
Well, you
we,
could
let's,
change it.
right? We can change
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the like why is that important and like what about our environment is important and how
Yeah.
like why is this a thing and why does it matter for bouncing back?
It's so important. And I want you to know, I'm going to talk environment first. The obvious is your physical environment. You could be in a cubicle. You could be in an office. You could be in a little room somewhere. You still have control of how you create your environment. What does it look like? My mom didn't have a lot, but she would make our environment so nice. It didn't matter if it came
Mm,
from the dollar store, but it was things, it was colors. You put the things that are inviting to you around you. Get in tune with that. I don't like dark rooms, but if you're a
mhm,
studio engineer, you love the dark studio vibe. You love that, but you have to know what works for you. For me, If I go in rooms that are dark, I'll check out of hotel rooms if there's not enough light because I
Mm.
need light. Literally, I must be like solar powered because if there's a lot of light, I'm happier. If it's dark, I'm like, ooh, I gotta get some more light
Oh.
coming, natural light. So, but
That's so good.
you have to be in tune to what environment. What are the things that are around you? Are they sayings that propel you forward? Is there lighting? Is there colors? But you will know what that is, and you will know when it's not working for you. I mean, even certain restaurants, if they don't feel right, I don't want to eat in them. When you get more in tune to what feels right sensory for you, it literally helps
Mm.
you. That's physical. Now, moving
Mhm.
beyond the physical, part of your environment is the here in your head. What are the thoughts you're telling yourself? This is a mental environment that you're living in every day based on what you fill it with. So make this planted good seeds that are bearing good fruit in your mind, which means what are you listening to? What are you telling yourself? And then it moves to who are the people that are around you? Are they
Mhm.
helping your environment and you, or are they hurting you? And there's certain situations which is hard, but you might have to change that because toxic is toxic. And if it is
Yeah.
not healthy for you, it's very hard to thrive in. What is the environment of your work? All of these things, when you start taking inventory, you start watching your patterns. If all of these things are not going well for you and the environment's not right, that means there's something that's got to change. There's a pattern, there's an environment. And once you start changing them to fit how you work and operate, you will start to thrive. That's why they say culture is so important because
Mm.
culture is also
Mhm.
the environment that's been created, it's the
Yeah.
ethos. So, what is the culture of you, of your
Yeah.
environment, of your ethos? Create it so that it works for you, not against you.
Yeah, and I feel like once you create it too, then you become the environment. Like I noticed that like at
Absolutely.
work, right? Like being that the ER is really dark and there's a lot of darkness there, like if you're not aware of your own environment internally and externally, like it will swallow you up and spit you out. So like it
Yes.
has to be it's a conscious thing. Like when I'm on my way to work, like I have to prep my mind, like get in the right
Mm-hmm.
space so that like I can be the light in the room, the
Right.
solar power,
Right.
like for
Right.
everybody else. Because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, like you'll be taken out like
Right.
if you're not in the right environment. Like I think it's so
Absolutely.
important. And I feel like I've gotten a lot better on my internal. I'm still working on my external because I have 3 kids and I'm like every room I go to, they
Yeah.
I'm like there's always something, but it's partly teaching them too, of like our
Yeah.
environment matters. And it's
It
teaching
does.
them with their
Let them
internal
know
and external.
and let them know too that, but also for you, again, this is not to be perfect in all areas, progress over perfection. But if you
Yeah.
have a space that you could go to in your house, a corner of the room, a nook in the room that is organized and happy for
Mhm.
you, that's where you can reset. So if you're not
Mm.
going to be able to, again, you can't make the ER look a certain way, but if you could reset and have a space that brings you your bounce back environment that helps you bounce back, you could go to that environment. You have fuel and oxygen to go again. That's what this means. So I mean,
Mm.
even for people listening, it could be your car. Keep it
Yeah.
clean. Keep it so that it's comfortable, it's clean, it smells good, it's whatever. It could even be as simple as your car that's your reset bounce back environment. It could be a nook in your house. It could be a bench in a park that you go to that if you live near. I mean, really don't get put in a box about this. Just find places that you could reset that create a healthy environment for you.
Yeah, I know. One of mine also is like we happen to live next to like a bunch of trails and we have
Mm-hmm.
lots of trees up here in
Yeah.
Northern California. And so especially when the weather's nice, like today it's like really windy and rainy, but when the weather's nice, like in the middle of the day, I'll just plan like time
Yeah.
for me to, even if it's like 20, 30 minutes, so for me to just pop out of my house and go into nature. And that is like my bounce back environment
Yeah.
for the time. It helps me
Mm-hmm.
like re-energize and be able to show up better when I
Mm-hmm.
get back. Um,
Definitely.
so we've touched a little bit on emotions by like embracing the suck, right? Like that is an emotional part that we like have to be better at. But what about emotional intelligence and how does that play in a role in bouncing back from our setbacks? And some people listening might be like, what is emotional intelligence
Sure.
and why does that matter? And like, am I supposed to measure my emotional intelligence? Like, talk about that.
Yeah. Part of this is because in this bounce back environment and book, I'm trying to teach you not only to bounce back, but to help create better spaces and places so that you don't have to bounce back consistently all the time. What I mean by
Mhm.
that is EQ is having awareness of self and the environment and the people around you. Emotional intelligence, we call EQ, is when you walk in the room, do you have awareness of how you're showing up? Do you have the ability to have reflection to say, what is my tone? What is the language I'm using? How is my presence affecting other people right now? And by having that emotional intelligence to check in to see how you are affecting a situation, good or bad, helps you make adjustments, keep it going or change it if it's not going well. But if you
Mhm.
don't have that insight, that intentional insight daily, that emotional intelligence, you could be affecting your environment to keep tripping up, to keep making mistakes, to keep upsetting the relationship, to keep having problems at work if you're not aware of your state. You could
Yeah.
also use this for good. When you do these things and you show up a certain way and you get good outcomes, have reflection time on that and keep doing that. So it's this reflection and intentionality to keep seeing how we affect our environment, which helps us from falling into problems or helps us keep our environment going in a good way. Or if we do fall, that we know how to get back up if we have to change it. The other part is you also have to know how to read a room. When you walk in,
Mhm.
if we were just a more emotionally intelligent people, we would be able to avoid some challenges because you walk in. Maybe you're about to say something and you're excited, but you walk in and you could tell the energy in the room. You're like, oh, something's going on here. I should maybe tone it down a little bit. I should
Mhm.
check in. I should say, hey, is everyone okay? Making sure it's just not your agenda. You have awareness of what's going on with others around you. That could
Yeah.
avoid you from having an argument, saying the wrong thing, showing up and doing something that you shouldn't. So, this
Yeah.
EQ is like an antenna that allows you to know what's going on internally and externally, going ding, 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 like, hey, this is good environment. This isn't. We should do this. It helps you know how to adjust yourself to the environment and vice versa.
Yeah, so good. So I feel like, it's impressive and really inspiring for you to not it's not like you just had one stroke and you got back up and kept moving forward and not just moving forward, but like took that and just brought so much purpose to your life. And then there's like the second and then there's a third stroke, right? And I'm like, wow, like 3, that's a lot. Like I think some people
Yeah.
would like if some people would be in your space and be like that's my sign to I got to give up, right? Like I'm done like I should probably just take some low stress job and chill out. So
I thought
what
about that.
right? I'm like, I
I
mean,
thought about that.
it's impressive, but I also feel
Mhm.
like there's something to learn there because
Yeah.
like what were there questions you asked yourself?
Yeah.
I think the chapter was really powerful in your book too was about reframing. Was
Hmm.
there like some of that was going on in your head after the third stroke, and
Yeah.
like how can people use that as an example in their own lives? Because sometimes like we just get beat down and then we get back up and then we're hit with it again, and of all people what that feels like.
Yeah. It feels like a ton of bricks, and
Yeah.
you feel like you're just getting your stride back. You're just hitting your runway again, and all of a sudden you get hit down, and you got to like land the plane and start all over again. And especially this last run, it went like 20. I think it was 2018 I had the stroke. My mom had a stroke a month before, so I didn't want to burden her when I
Oh.
went to the ER. I get to the ER in Arizona. I don't want to burden her. She's in Connecticut, so I'm kind of going through this alone.
Mhm.
And well, it definitely was. And I just remember sitting in the ER going, is this where I go? I'm watching the heart monitor. But I also was prepared because I had been through this before, and I said, listen, if I'm going to make it, say I have paralysis. I started thinking about all the people that I took care of that did and how I helped them get to the other side. And in that moment, I'm
Mm.
going, really, Dar? If anything comes at you and you're alive, there's nothing you can't overcome. I'm giving myself my own pep talk again, going, you've helped people. You may
Mhm.
become one of those scenarios, and there was someone that helped them get back. It may be a new normal. Life might not look the same, but if God's still giving you life, that means you have to do something with it. And then I even went to the gentleman, I may not say his name right, Nick Vachorak, but he has
Oh,
no
I
arms and
love
no.
him.
I
Yes.
love him, his faith,
Me
his
too.
persistence, his mindset,
Yes.
and I said, okay, Nick is totally winning in all areas of life with no arms
Yes.
and no legs. You could do this no matter what it was. So I was setting myself up, whatever the outcome was, as my heart rate was going down. And I'm sitting there going, I don't know where this is going. I thought, no matter what it is, when you wake up, should you go unconscious, you're going to be okay. So then I
Mm.
get through it, was very challenging. And I reframed it to say, this is a bad season, but this doesn't mean a bad life. And you are going to fight every day. Again, I went to why power over willpower, which is another chapter where I said, I can't will myself through this, but with my why, which I told you before, I have to serve. I moved it to, well, this was never about me anyways. This life was
Mm.
never about me, but it was about doing the best with the life that I have to give my gift back to help the world. And that is what fuels me every damn day and got me through some of the toughest times. And here's the thing I want to say. In those moments where, with those days, which you get them, and I give myself like 24 hours where I get to call my best friend and say, I got to vent and talk this through so you can keep me on course. And I said, I think one day I just remember going, I'm definitely not going to go back and run my own practice. Maybe I'll just play smaller. Maybe I'll just, take a job that I could just do that's not as all encompassing around the world. I was traveling with the Phoenix Suns, like everything, speaking. And my sister and even her and everyone goes, okay, you're going to do that for maybe 3 weeks max. And then you're going to go, well, what if we could fix this? And what about if we could help this person? She goes, it's just not how you were created. You were not created to play small. It's now some people that would benefit them, but it will make you more miserable with whatever time you have left playing small than playing big. That's just your
Mm.
personality, and it's why you were created to go help in the way you were. And I was like, yeah, you're right. You're
Yeah,
right.
you're right.
I can't. I mean, like, I'm like, that sounds nice, but I'm going to get so bored and I'm going to be so frustrated with not making the type of change I want to make on such a big scale. So I was like, that's a crazy idea. Okay, let's do this.
Yeah, but and how important is that, like, that you had those people in your life to bounce that back from, right? Like, because oftentimes, like, we're kind of holding our emotions in and we're holding our thoughts in, and then they just like fester. But when you have people
Oh,
that
God.
love you and they know you, like, and they've been with you through this, like, how powerful is that that you can say that and
Mhm.
someone's like, I know who you are. That's not gonna work, right?
It's invaluable. And that's why finding those people, one or two, honestly, that just
Yeah.
know you. And they're not going to say, because it is very easy to say to someone when they're scared, oh, yeah, you know what? You should do that because it's safer. But that
Mm.
doesn't always mean it's the best option because
Mhm.
I would never find full joy. I would be more depressed not doing what God called me to do just to play it safe and
Mhm.
comfortable. And listen, I am at such a higher percentage of having a fourth stroke. So I just play all out anyways. I'm like, I don't know what my runway is going to be, just like none of us do. So why would
Mhm.
I play it small? Why?
Mm.
I'm again, you want to be able to say I'm so glad I did rather than I wished I had.
Yeah, I know. It's so true too. I remember people were thought I was crazy. I was 9 months pregnant when I started college. I was literally like
Mm-hmm.
days away from my due date and they thought I was crazy. They're like, "Why don't you just take a year off or
Yeah.
something?" Like or like, you could just like work this job over here and you'll go back eventually. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, no, I'm not like I have more to do and like this doesn't define me. In fact, I'm going to show him that we can do hard things by accomplishing this. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pave that path for him, and But yeah, there's people that will say like, "Oh, and hold you back, maybe not on purpose and maybe out of love. They think is out of love because they're protecting you, but I
Mm-hmm.
have found that like it has been such a game changer in my life to find those people that speak not only truth to you and who you are, but like also hold you accountable to be that,
Yeah,
you
they
know?
speak life into you.
Yeah. And it's so
Mm-hmm.
powerful. Is
Mm-hmm.
there any questions that you think people could ask themselves? Like let's say that they're in a setback, they're kind of going through the work. Is there any questions that maybe could make them think a little bit more deeper or reframe their situation, like questions that were powerful?
I think start with this exercise. As soon as you start going through something, your brain starts to think negative things, false things, and then there's truth somewhere in there, meaning you might be beating yourself up. Let's just take something simple. Something happened at work and
Mhm.
you get a setback from it. And now you're beating yourself up. Why did I do that? Oh my gosh, maybe I'm not talented enough. Maybe I'm not capable to do this. Imposter syndrome comes in.
Mhm.
Get a piece of
Mhm.
paper and write truth and false. And what you do is on the one side that's false, start writing those thoughts out, which probably are not true. And then what you're going to do is you're going to own it and you're going to go, I'm not capable to do this job. And then you go, okay, well, am I actually capable to do this? Yes. So is this statement true or false? False. Cross it off, exit, and then
Yeah.
write the truth statement next to it. Then it would be, maybe it's something about, well, I'm not smart enough to do this. Well, actually write that out. Yes, you are, because you're already in the position and it was a bad presentation, not that you're bad. So cross it off and write the truth statement. And you keep doing this. And what you're doing is you're talking to yourself and you're reprogramming, again,
Mm.
you're reprogramming the correct things in your brain and your files rather than living off of these false files that have no merit, that is literally your mind sabotaging itself. So you have to write these truth statements to the false statements. You could do this at night journaling. If you, at the end of a day, you want to, what's the wins? What's the losses? What are the
Yeah.
thoughts coming in that are not good for me? And then what's the truth to this? You do this enough, you start finding your brain is a garden of truth rather than a roots of the false negative loops that we have. So clean the
Mhm.
garden out every night and start planting the right seeds in. So when you wake up and start the day, you're starting with a fresh garden.
I love that. That's so good. And yeah, I think that is a practice that like especially those just starting out like should be doing every day. Like I think that's part of how we figure out who we are and what we're capable of too, right? Like just taking
Self
that.
reflect.
Yeah, that was huge for me. For what pieces of hope can you share from your story that prove that the setback is going to make a comeback stronger and better on the other side? Not just like
Mm-hmm.
we're bouncing back to where we are, but we are coming back stronger and better on the other side. Because that I feel like to me when I read your book, like I see that a lot in you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was wondering if you could share some hope for that.
Well, I just want you to know every great that we ever know, anyone in sports, anyone in business, and even the movies, if you've ever seen the greats, their life was never easy. And the
Mm.
reason they got better and better and better and to the top of their game is because they used all the adversity to be stepping stones to raise them higher. They allowed the adversity to advance them. They got better because like the gym, when you stress the muscle, that's how the fibers tear and it gets bigger. Well, that's what we do with our internal emotional and mental muscle. The more we go through these challenges, the stronger we get. So again, the lows are
Mm.
not so low because look at it this way. You look at the people in the military, they have seen such tough things that day to day, maybe something simple. I have a great friend who's a Navy SEAL. He's so agile that when little things happen that might throw a civilian off, to him, he goes, that's not a problem. We have to figure out much larger problems than that. Don't let the little things trip you up. Now, he's got a different perspective, but that's what going through tough times does. It gives you perspective to go,
Mm.
I don't like this, and I know this is a setback, but I also know we all have 100% bounce back rate right now. Every one of us, if we are living, we have 100% bounce back rate. Nowhere in life do we have 100% of anything else, but we do that. So you could rely on the stat that's you. You could rely that you've bounced back from everything hard. And I could tell you, every time you build more resiliency by going through it, you get stronger, which raises you higher, not lower. So don't be
Mm.
afraid of adversity. When it comes, lean in. You don't have to like it. You just have to figure out how to embrace it so you could deal with it. So then you could rise higher from it.
Oh, that was so good. It was like a mic drop. Hey, there we are. This is so fun. I love you. Okay, so
Oh.
how can people connect with you and find your book from here?
Go to coachdar.com. That's where all of my social links are. That's where you could order
Okay.
the book. You go to Barnes and Noble or Amazon to buy the book. You could sign up for my newsletter. Please sign up because there's going to be so many awesome things happening this year. And if you don't follow, you won't be able to know. But I send out golden nuggets on mindset and mentality and resiliency every Thursday. So you could sign up for the newsletter there. You could go on at the Coach Dar is my Instagram handle. Follow along. I do see your messages. And coachdar.com has everything. Get in touch with me. Everything's right there. So go there,
Is
follow along, get all the
I'm
information.
I'm excited. Is there anything we should be looking for in 2024?
There is a 2-day experience. It's called The Experience, and it's literally helping people learn how to take life to a whole nother level. Like the next version within them, it's going to pull it out of you. And it's going to teach you a lot of the principles that I have been teaching for 27 years. So that when you leave, you have a toolkit, you've experienced something awesome, and it's created an environment that you get to then create back in your environment that's going to help set you up for success.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like so much fun. And is that on your website as well?
Not yet. It
Not
will,
yet.
yeah,
Okay.
reveal's coming. Hopefully, in about 30 days, it'll be revealed.
Okay. And so should we be checking your website or your social for that?
So both. And if you sign up for the
Okay.
newsletter, so sign up for the
It'll be
newsletter,
in
you
the
definitely
newsletter.
won't miss it. But also go to Instagram is probably where you'll see it first at the Coach Dar. And I'll be
Okay.
teasing it. Plus on Instagram, it's the only place that I put stories that I'm putting nuggets out all the time, just to give you a little
Mm-hmm.
daily dose of Dar.
So good. I love
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Mental notes.
Mental
So
notes. Yes.
so good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been so fun. You've
Thank
shared
you
just
so
incredible
much.
insights, and I have no doubt that our listeners are walking away with actionable strategies to tackle their setbacks. So thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
on. Yeah. So go follow Darlene on Instagram at Coach Dar and grab her book to learn more about her proven science backed tools to help you respond to challenges, obstacles, and mental blocks in helpful and productive ways. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, it's not about the setbacks, it's about the comebacks. Keep bouncing back and stay inspired. Until next time, take care and keep striving for greatness.
Yay.